they start the party nice and early up here in Townsville for the Castrol Edge Townsville 400. We had the Super Street Party rocking out yesterday afternoon in the CBD. It was moved to a new location on Flinders Street, and they turned up in their thousands for it. And what better way to start off what is going to be a huge weekend. We've got the GTs up on track. Let's just quickly bring you up to speed with what happened for them in Perth. I'm joined by Tony D'Alberto for this one. They're qualifying coming up shortly, but the racing in Perth was interesting. 2 races there, wet conditions to start it off with, so using those electrical aids.
Absolutely, and we see Ricky Capo there had a bit of a spin, but very easy to do in those conditions, especially when it's wet and dry. You're not really sure what tyre to run, and you're trying to get ahead of the game here. We see the JPEG car coming in, putting those dries on.
How about this moment? Marcus Marshall, I've got it. No, I don't. And lucky to come across the track there and not get absolutely smashed.
Yeah, exactly what I was saying there about just off line. He's a little bit wet. He's just trying to thread the needle there and just caught him out.
Now, this was down at Cons Corner, or Kolb as it used to be known, turn 6, and the Audi and the Beamer getting together, and unfortunately the new M6 backed it into the sand and brought out another safety car. Afterwards, it was Tony Quinn out front, and this ended up being a pretty good race on what was always a drying racetrack the whole way through. Massive slide from the back of the McLaren.
Yeah, they had some good little battles here over the weekend. Morecambe, though, he's been a standout this year.
He's having
another great round.
A monster year. He would win this round in the end, but just did so by staying out of trouble. Here's Dean Cantor up the inside of Quinn, gets pinched, and eventually the other Quinn finished him off. But unfortunately, Dino and Andrew Taplin not racing here this weekend. They were meant to be, but unfortunately had to pull out at the last minute. And in the end, it was McLaughlin who got the win. That's Steve McLaughlin, no relation to Scott. And they were squabbling the whole way back through the pack. So Audi picked up the first one. Much better conditions for the second race. Love watching the GTs around my old circuit back over there in the west, because it was their first time ever over in WA. It was a nice clean start for this one. Morecambe got hung out to dry. Clark Quinn got a pretty good start. Steve McLaughlin must have been expecting this to happen though.
Yeah, I mean, for Steve there, he's up against some of the guns coming through the field. So he does a smart thing often and just lets them fight it out. And here we see Jeff Emery. I mean, this was a huge hit.
That was a hard hit head on and into the fence. We had to stop the race because Jeff did hurt his back in that accident, but the good news is he's actually at the track this weekend, so
Yeah, I spoke to Jeff last night. He's just been back on his feet for about 2 or 3 weeks now, so he's by no means better, but he's getting a little bit stronger and able to at least walk by himself now.
So the race was restarted, and they did the driver changing during the red flag, so it put a lot of the pro guys into their cars. Bit of a moment for Ash Marty and his older Mercedes. Isn't a new Audi this weekend.
He is, yeah. So I spoke to him as well. He's loving the new Audi. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes this weekend.
That was the bad show in the new, beautiful AMG up the inside of Morecambe, the championship leader, and then set sail for the other McLaren as the battle a bit further back was on. BMW. Oh, that's some expensive carbon fibre shards right there.
Yeah, just got in the back of him there. Hasn't the AMG been a weapon this year? I think it's probably one of the...
That was a good move, that one. It just goes to show the confidence that Craig Baird has in that car that he's sharing with Scott Taylor. It would be Craig Baird's second win for the year. He picked up a win in that car. It was the first win globally for that car at the Australian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty amazing race, that one, despite what happened to Jeff Emery. But like we said, Jeff's okay. Still on the road to recovery, but thankfully he'll be back in a race car before too long. So that leaves us with a pretty interesting championship picture now in the Australian GT Championship, thanks to Cams. Nathan Morecambe, he said, has been the standout. He's leading by 51 points, which means technically he could actually wrap the championship up this weekend if he builds a lead over 200 odd points. Something to think about this weekand.
It'd have to be a pretty good weekend, but hey, we've got some good operators in here this weekend. We saw Glenn Wood this morning actually in practice going quickest. So, like I said, there's definitely some good cars and some quality operators that I think, you know, for Nathan to get that lead would be an exceptional weekend. But hey, it's doable. Hopefully not though. You know, hopefully for the championship's sake, we go right to the final round.
This car had an interesting weekend this time last year. They were first to the checkered flag and thought, yes, we've got our hands on a trophy, but unfortunately they miscalculated their pit stop time a little bit. And
that was an interesting race. I was actually in that race with Grant Denyer in the Ferrari.
You're being very modest. You won that race.
Well, we did in the end because we went home that evening and we thought we'd finish second. And to be honest, we didn't really know or even think that anything would have you know, happened like that. And then we got the call, hey, you actually got the win today. So that was a nice little phone call.
Any way you can get him. You and Clark Quinn have the record for most race wins here with a couple each.
There you go. Jeez.
Both of yours coming in Ferraris. Sad to see that the 488 isn't here this weekend, but you're rocking the DJR Team Penske attire this weekend. Obviously looking forward to the Pertec Endurance Cup.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I am a little bit disappointed not racing here this weekend. The GT had a pretty good run here for the last couple of years. He was meant to be doing it with Peter Edwards in the 488, but he's away for business this weekend. So a bit of a shame, but hey, we're focusing on the Endurance Championship, not only for supercars, but for GT as well. So looking forward to just seeing how these guys go this weekend. And you've got Nathan Walkham on screen now. Like I said, he's been a real standout this weekend. I'm not sure how much experience he has on this circuit in particular.
Hasn't raced here since 2010 in Formula Ford.
There you go.
For you.
And it is a daunting circuit, especially when you're in $500,000 race car.
Yes, concrete everywhere. And if you make even the slightest error, there's a little bit of runoff in some of the corners here. It's not as bad as like Homebush or maybe Adelaide.
The biggest problem at the moment, so early in the weekend, is a lot of these painted curbs that haven't been rubbered in yet. So if you get yourself out there, they're very, very slippery. As the weekend goes on, we'll see these guys exploring these curbs a little bit more and using more of the racetrack. So the big thing for me around this circuit is being able to ride some of these curves. We see the supercars running over them, but a lot of the GT cars can't cope with that. And that's one thing that Ferrari was very, very good at. So the back section was super fast, and it'll be interesting to see how many guys are actually going to run them.
Yeah, Nathan, who we're looking at right now, said after that first session he was giving those curbs, particularly on the inside of the racetrack through 6 and that back section of the track that you're talking about, giving those curbs a lot of room. Not even trying to touch them, but using a lot of the exit curbs.
Yep.
And we saw James Golding have a moment in the Dunlop Series practice earlier, getting out on those curbs at turn 6.
The benefit with Nate there is he's actually running by himself, so he's got both these qualifying sessions to build up to it. He doesn't have to, you know, put it on the line in this session. Whereas if you're sharing with another guy, that's the only opportunity you have. So I wouldn't expect Nate to be pushing the limits in this session, but definitely come quali 2.
Yeah.
He'll be, and by then you'll have supercars out there. They'll be running all these curves, and they'll be definitely rubbing in a lot more.
And it'll be in the cool of tomorrow morning as well, so it'll be a nice track temperature to get out there and operate on. So, oh man, that turn 11 hop gets me every time when we come back here over the train tracks. Just to explain this, we have 2 20-minute qualifying sessions in Cam's Australian GT Championship. And if you do share the car with someone, Nathan Morecambe doesn't, he has it to himself. Oh, we've got Tony Walls, another solo driver facing the wrong way here. We have one 20-minute session for one driver, and then tomorrow we have the second session. And it's not a combination or anything confusing like that. It's literally fastest time, set the grid. All right. That's fairly early into the corner.
Yeah, he's just lost the rear on the turn-in point, and that's a pretty fast part of the circuit there. And Denyer there, or the Just Cuts car, is pretty close to...
That should be Grant in that car. I imagine a lot of the pro drivers that use that term lovingly will be taking the car in the better conditions tomorrow.
Yes. So that was actually a really good recovery. Could have had 2 McLarens running into each other. We got
not a good way to start the weekend.
Elliot Barber in this McLaren now. He's had a stellar year, to be honest. Hasn't had a lot of experience in these cars. And at Phillip Island, he was quickest in his session in qualifying. So he's done a lot of miles around here. He should be up the front.
All right, let's have a look at this McLaren. Under brakes down at turn 2. Using the ABS, the electronics help on the exit.
Generally, at this time of the session here, while they're still trying to get tyre temp, they've probably put the settings up a little bit with traction and ABS. And once the tyres are definitely up, you know, the aim is to try and crank it down as much as you can. You've got some of the bumps on the exit of corners, and if you've got the traction set too high, it interferes too much and just kills that speed.
Clark Quinn, second in the championship, putting together a nice lap here onto the front straight. And he's already on top with a 1:13.5. He looks to lower that down by 0.3. So it's a good one, but we're still a long way off last year's. I think it was a 12.1 for pole last year from John O'Lester.
It'll be interesting to see this weekend because they have resurfaced some parts of the circuit. So, you know, most of the circuit though has, you know, deteriorated another. Oh, we've still got.
Oh, the Wolf McLaren's still sitting
stuck
there.
Out there.
Couldn't
they
get
might
it going.
have to red flag that session. Pretty vulnerable spot there.
It's a difficult spot to leave $500,000.
So as I was saying, that the circuit will slowly degrade as, you know, year by year. So it will be interesting to see whether they can, you know, with that new service at turn 2, it gives them much speed over the whole lap. But like you said before, really this session here, I won't imagine that it will be as quick as what they did last year.
Red flag, there we go. So, wise choice to fly the red. Obviously, officials trying to give these guys as much track time as possible, so trying to wait from dropping that red to see if Tony could get that car moved before they decided to throw the red flag. But unfortunately, it looks like that McLaren isn't going anywhere in a hurry, so they had no choice but to drop the red flag on this session, which means that all the drivers need to come back to the pit lane. They'll wait there until we get this car moved, and we should get some more running in here, but obviously not ideal.
Well, here he goes. He's got it going.
Always the way, isn't it? As soon as you actually get the safety car out or the red flag, that's when the car magically fires back to life. Craig Lowndes finding that part of the wall there a couple of years ago in the supercars. Ended his extreme run of no DNFs in the championship a couple of years ago.
The Techno Autosport entries of the McLarens there, they got, I think they've got 3 at the moment this year. Yeah, so that's quite impressive. You know, they run their supercar program, but also got their McLaren program. So they've had a great year winning the Bathurst 12-hour. You know, Nathan Morgan's been on fire. Won Phillip Island 101 recently, so doing a great job. If
they could win the Sprint Championship, the Endurance Championship, a few more of these 101 events and the 12-hour in the one season, I think they'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, it's a big year
with what they've achieved. So Tony Walls has that car fired back up, has raced here in Carrera Cup in the past. Similar objective signage on the car.
This car here is prepared by McElroy Racing, so very professional outfit. So that car there will be pristine and very well prepared for this weekend. So not sure what happened there, whether there's just a bit of electrical gremlin where they couldn't start the car again, or...
we have seen that with the McLaren.
Yeah.
The 12-hour winning McLaren had a moment like that at Bathurst, didn't it, where it pulled up on the front straight and had to do the Control-Alt-Delete restart.
Yeah. And reboot. I think even Elliot Barber, I remember at Clipsal there, going down the back straight, had the same thing. Just turned off. So
that's 3 different McLarens now that we can say that about.
So I'm not sure it's the same problem, but from a driver's point of view, when the thing shuts off and you can't turn it back on, it's a very panic situation, especially in a race.
Yeah, absolutely. There is the series owner in the Darrell Lee V12. So we've got 6s, 8s, 10s and 12s all covered this weekend across the board. So it's obviously a nightmare to try and manage that from a quality point of view. The balance of performance, as they call it.
Yeah.
We'd call it parity in supercars. And green flag flying again. So it was a very brief red flag. And it was probably at the right time almost for a lot of these guys to come in and just check the tyre pressures anyway. So they've got a good 10 minutes left here to run it home.
Yeah, I don't think we've really seen the true potential just yet. But now, you know, 10 minutes to go, they're really going to have to get back on it. Probably a lap or so. It's a fairly short lap here. So to try and get tyre temp again, it will probably take a couple of laps before they sort of start setting blistering lap times.
So this is the 4th time now we've been racing here with the Australian GT Championship. 2011, 2014 and 2015, the 3 years that we've been here. My esteemed colleague, Tony, picking up the round win last year with Grant Denyer, who now we see in the McLaren. How about this car? Getting that win that we saw in Perth. Shared this car with Garth Tander, who put it on pole actually at Phillip Island, proving that GT still got it.
And GT was unbelievably fast at Phillip Island. You know, they're doing 26s at Phillip Island, which, you know, for a car like this, they don't have a lot of straight line speed, so that, you know, required a lot of commitment through the high-speed corners. And we saw in qualifying Phillip Island, GT having a massive spin, so he's putting the car to the limit there, and it's only a small little difference in speed, and the thing lets go. But what I really love about this championship is you've got different strengths and weaknesses between the cars. You know, Audi have decided to go, you know, full aero attack, and then you've got Mercedes probably in the middle a little bit, and you know, the car that I race, the 458, the older car, is definitely quicker in a straight line, but doesn't have quite as much aero. So a circuit like this, it probably would suit. Yep. But then we go to, you know, Phillip Island, where long corners, it starts to struggle a little bit. The BMW, to me, is a car that, look, Phillip Island just started to perform a lot better than what we've seen. So I think you know, Stevie Richards and that team are really starting to get their head around that car. So I wouldn't be surprised if they start to pick up their pace a little bit this weekend.
Yeah, we do have 2 BMWs. There's one just at the top, peeking in right there. That is the older model Z4, Z4, whatever you want to call it. And that is Ricky Capo in that car. But this is the M6.
Yeah, we got Max Quigg in this car. Ricky's, he's been really quick on occasions this year. And I think that car in particular here, and and Ricky behind the wheel should have a good weekend.
Ducked back to race Formula 3 last week at Sydney Motorsport Park as part of the Shannon's Nationals. Was on the podium actually in Phillip Island for the first time in the Cairns Australian GT Championship. So Ricky's still a very young guy, finding his feet nicely in this category. Huge potential.
Ricky's got ambitions to actually go overseas and race DTM, so he sees this as a bit of a stepping stone for himself, gain a little bit of experience in a tin top and aero, and he's got that experience with Formula 3 with the aero, but not so much driving a bigger car like this. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes the next few years and whether he stays in Australian GT or he progresses overseas.
I saw him flip a KZ2 go-kart at Todd Road once, and the thing landed on top of him. He was on his back on the racetrack with the cart on top of his legs, and he managed to crawl out from underneath it, hop back in the thing for another race later that day. So he's clearly a brave young fella. We go on board now with Elliot Barber onto the front straight, sharing this car with Nathan Antunes.
These guys have got the best hair in pit lane.
Careful, Rick Kelly might be listening.
Oh, yeah.
Between the three of them, they've formed quite the Rat Pack. I do call them the Rat Pack because they do all these, you're kind of part of that with Carl Reiler, the official drive training crew that go around doing all the Audi days and all the luxury car training. Must be a pretty cool way to spend your Mondays hanging out at places like Phillip Island.
Yeah, I mean, you get to do a job that you enjoy with some like-minded race drivers. It can get a little bit competitive, but to spend the time away with those guys is a bit of fun. But Nathan and Elliot, they're good mates. Yesterday, they actually did a little bit of training up the mountain there, and very, very fit guys, and really trying to make the most of this sprint series, that they're sharing together.
So Roger Largo has just popped up into P1, and I'll tell you why that's impressive as he pulls the big Lambo up down here, because in this next corner, this time 12 months ago, he broke his leg driving a Carrera Cup car. So that's pretty cool to see him bounce back here and put the thing P1 today. Yep,
absolutely. Roger has had a few little incidences that, even at the Grand Prix, he had a bit of a crash there. And but Clipsal, I think he almost won the round at Clipsal. He's right up there. So he's had some really good performances, and I think he likes the street sort of style circuit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So it was a nasty crash for him last year. He's got David Russell on the radio to him this weekend as well, actually.
Oh, dear.
Trying to throw in some last-minute tips for him. Here's the Walkinshaw Porsche back again, and it's being chased by another one of our McLarens. Tony Wall's doing okay for himself now that he's back out on track. That'll be Neil Mustin in the Walkinshaw, a Radical racer from New South Wales, I believe. Okay. Radical being the series, not his driving style. So we've got variety covered for you. Porsches, Astons, Audis, everything all the way through the field. Except Ferrari. It's the one thing missing this weekend, which is a shame. But 7 different manufacturers. Just need that 8th, I reckon, the 488 with you in the seat, mate.
Yeah, that would be good. I drove that car at the Grand Prix this year, and it is a beautiful car to drive. Such a big step up from the previous model, which it should be. But they've done such a nice job, and these new generation cars are just that little bit better. Elliot just getting held up there.
So Barber turning some fast laps. He currently sits in P5. So having a chat, was he? Or?
Yeah, I think he's on the radio expressing what he thought. We've got Clark Quinn at the top at the moment. He's just broken into the 1:12 bracket. So we're getting there.
1:12.9. So Mark Sini in the Audi just pulling out of the way with the big JBS Largo driven car.
Isn't that a big car?
It's huge, isn't it? And these guys are actually going off to Spa for the 24 hour. So it's Largo, Webb, Russell.
Yep.
And
maybe
Steve Owen.
Yeah,
Stevie O is going to drive that car. So what a combo that is for Spa.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I spoke to D-Russ a couple of weeks ago about that, and he is absolutely pumped for it. The last year they missed it.
Because of the accident that happened here.
Yep.
Rogers just pulling out of the way, letting the fast guys through. He's clearly on a cool-down lap here on his way back into the pit. So we wish those 4 blokes all the best. Representing Australia at the 24 Hours of Spa. Is that next week, is it, or the week after? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's coming up very soon.
Yeah.
Just interesting to see there the James Konduras in the Audi is the quickest Audi at the moment. So he sort of popped up there without us noticing. That's a pretty good effort there. Sharing this weekend with Marcus Marshall. There she is.
Super Barn Audi. And they were leading the championship points at one stage of the series. Unfortunately, had that nasty crash at the 3rd race at Clipsal. But fighting the way back up in the points at the moment and putting together a really good championship is James Kanduris. Clark Quinn set a personal best first sector time. Lost a little bit of running through the middle, a good 2.5 seconds actually, so he's not going to improve here on his #1 time of the 12.9.
It's always difficult as a driver, you know, you come up to some of the slower guys that are actually letting you pass, but you're not sure if they've actually seen you just yet. So just that little hesitation on the throttle can just cost you those couple of tenths that you're looking for on that lap. So, you know, the other guys are doing the right thing, but it can still affect the lap time.
Here comes Morecambe, our championship leader. I get the feeling we're going to see a bit of a hit-out between he and Clark Quinn this weekend. Personal best lap season moves to 6. He's still 7 tenths off the pace of the man he's fighting in this championship. But like we said earlier, hasn't raced here in anything since 2010, and that was a Formula Ford, so this is a big step up. Oh, he gets right out near the fence at the exit of turn 2.
But Denyer now up into P2, almost breaking to the 12 bracket there.
Wow, and fastest through the middle sector, Grant Denyer. So that's pretty impressive. Grant has a win here in the Dunlop Series actually as well.
Oh, it would have been reverse grid though.
Technically, yes, it was. I'll tell you, you said that.
I can say that, I can say that.
But
no, last year, Grant did an awesome job in the Ferrari.
Nate on the curbs there, having a crack. Taking a lot more of the curbs than I expected to see out of any of the stiffer sprung cars this weekend.
I think sometimes, you know, some of this curb usage, especially around this back part of the circuit, see Grant's not actually using it. The other thing's going to cool down. But if you commit to it hard enough, the car will sort of fly across it. It's just building up that courage to actually do it and commit to it.
What's that corner like there over the train tracks? You hear the cars bottoming out.
Yeah.
Is it that wild through there? It looks like these guys are on the edge there.
It is a little bit, but to be honest, in the GT car, it's pretty easy flat out through there. It's just really, the car does bottom, move around a little bit, but not to the point where you've got to get out of the throttle. Actually, it'd be better if you stay in it and pin the car to the ground rather than lift off mid-cornering and create an oversteer. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, dear. Not the new 911.
Oh, I think you got away with that.
Oh, that is close. The new Walkinshaw Porsche nearly had a bit of a dust up there. It had some damage to fix after Phillip Island was in the wars there.
So we've got a minute to go in this session. You know, there's still be guys on hot laps here just trying to get that last lap in. But to talk about, you know, the goodness of the tyre, it's probably gone now, to be honest. It's probably the only thing that will be improving is the track condition with dust and bits and pieces. But the goodness of that tyre is probably gone. So to see people go faster now, I'd probably be a little bit surprised.
Never ceases to amaze me, Grant Denyer. He's a TV personality come race car driver, and any day of the week you reckon it could be the other way around. Well, he has good speed.
He is. He's very fast. People wouldn't really give him that credit because he's on TV every day and they see him as a TV host. But to be honest, he was a race driver before he was into TV. So he got involved purely to get sponsorship and to market himself. And hasn't that turned out an awesome way? Elliott there, he's just, you see how he flew into the pit lane there? He's just practicing the pit stop, basically. So in the race, he's going to have to stop hot. He just has to work out where he's going to actually brake from to get to that 40K limit by the line.
So Mustin will bring the 911 home in P20.
But Clark actually just went a little bit quicker there, 12.8. That's a pretty good time.
He's got 3 tenths on the field at the moment, as his dad rounds the last corner in the background as well.
Clark's an interesting one as well. You know, he's seen as an amateur driver, but he's won more races than a lot of the pros out there in GT. So he's no slouch, that's for sure. Very
exceptional driver, Clark Quinn. A couple race wins on the streets of Townsville already. One on a Mosler, actually, all the way back in 2011. So as I said, checkered flag has flown here, and that is the first session, but it hasn't set the grid just yet, because we do have another session tomorrow morning. That's car number 1 with Tony Bates in it this week, actually. I haven't had a chance to mention Tony, but his second meeting now in an Audi, and a very capable Carrera Cup driver is Tony Bates. And I think he and Christopher Mees, who will be taking control of this car for tomorrow's qualifying session, very much my favourite pick for pole position, I'd have to say.
Yeah, for those guys that don't have to go too fast in this session, they rely on the main driver. But we see Clark Quinn there. He's the primary driver in that car. 12.8, that's a really good time.
So 1.2 seconds covering the top 10. And that'll, I imagine, greatly diminish tomorrow when all the pros hop in for their big turn. Max Twigg in that beautiful M6 just missing out on the top 10. Further down, Scott Taylor in 16th, having a good crack racing Greg Taylor, who's actually leading the Trophy Championship, which is the other championship that's running for the older cars outside of what we see here this weekend. And that was an exciting first session for these guys. We'll see them back tomorrow. Tony, thank you very much. We're 13 minutes away from practice in the supercars, but let's wind back the clock to last year. It was a beautiful weekend in the sun for Mark Winterbottom.